If you drive south from Seoul, past the endless sprawl of high-rise apartments and neon signs, you eventually hit the rural quiet of Pyeongtaek. And if you stand near the perimeter fence of Osan Air Base on a clear Tuesday morning, you will hear a sound that has supposedly gone extinct. It is a low, mournful whine, followed by the crackle of high bypass turbofans. Then you see them, the 25th Fighter Squadron, the Drongos. They are flying the A-10 Thunderbolt II. For the last 5 years, the U.S. Air Force has been trying to kill this airplane. They have argued with spreadsheets and PowerPoint decks that the A-10 is a dinosaur. They have pointed to the war in Ukraine, to the skies over the Donbass, where slow-flying Su-25s are swatted down by S-400 missiles, and said, "See, the era of close air support is over. The airspace is too lethal." And they are right. In Ukraine, the A-10 would be a coffin. But here is the uncomfortable truth that the Pentagon struggles to articulate in budget hearings. Korea is not Ukraine. The Korean Peninsula is a strategic anomaly. It is a theater of war frozen in amber, defined by a unique geography and a unique enemy that negates almost every lesson we have learned in Eastern Europe. In Ukraine, the war is a duel of artillery across flat, open steppes where you can see for 20 miles. In Korea, the war would be a knife fight in a closet. It would be fought in narrow, winding valleys against an enemy that relies not on high-tech precision, but on overwhelming, suffocating mass. And in that specific, terrifying scenario, the A-10 is not a relic. It is the only machine in the U.S. inventory capable of stopping the collapse of the line. To understand why the Warthog still matters here, we have to ignore the memes. We have to look at the mountains, we have to look at the kill boxes, and we have to look at the math of a second Korean War. Air power is usually discussed in terms of altitude and speed, but in Korea, air power is dictated by topography. The Korean peninsula is 70% mountainous. The backbone of the country is the Taebaek mountain range. The terrain is a nightmare of steep granite ridges, deep valleys, and dense foliage. This geography dictates how an invasion must happen. You cannot just drive a tank division across the rice paddies, you would sink in the mud. You cannot drive them over the peaks, you are forced onto the roads. There are only 3 major invasion routes from North Korea into Seoul. We call them the classic corridors. 1, the Chorwon Valley, a broad, flat corridor that leads directly into the heart of South Korea's defenses. 2, the Munsan Corridor, the most direct route to Seoul, heavily urbanized and fortified. 3, the Kaesong approach, a narrower, more restrictive axis. Military planners call these corridors bowling alleys. If the Korean People's Army, KPA, attacks, they will try to shove 4,000 tanks and 2,000 armored personnel carriers down these 3 narrow roads simultaneously. The problem with high fast flyers. Now imagine you are an F-16 or F-35 pilot trying to attack that column. You are flying at 20,000 feet to stay above the AAA, anti-aircraft artillery. You are moving at 500 knots. You look down, and what do you see? You see a valley floor that is maybe 800 meters wide. It is cluttered with smoke, burning vehicles, and civilian traffic. The mountains on either side create radar shadows. Your targeting pod, the sniper or lightning pod, struggles to maintain a lock because the line of sight is constantly broken by ridgelines. To hit a tank in that valley with a laser-guided bomb, you have a window of seconds. If you miss, or if the laser loses track, you have to fly a 10-mile circle to reset and try again. In those 10 minutes it takes you to reset, the North Korean column has moved another 2 miles closer to Seoul. The A-10's terrain advantage. The A-10 does not fight from 20,000 feet. It fights in the weeds. Because the A-10 is slow and maneuverable, it can fly inside the valleys. It can hug the terrain, using the granite ridgelines as a shield. This is a tactic called terrain masking. In Ukraine, there are no mountains to hide behind. If you fly low, you are silhouetted against the sky for every manpads operator within 5 miles. In Korea, if you fly low, you are invisible. You pop up over a ridge, unleash hell for 15 seconds, and then drop back down into the next valley before the enemy radar can lock you. The A-10 is the only fixed-wing asset that can effectively maneuver within the confined airspace of the Chorwan Alley. It turns the geography from a hindrance into a weapon. We need to talk about the KPA. Western analysts often mock the North Korean military. We see their parades with 1960s-era T-62 tanks and tractors pulling rocket launchers, and we laugh. We compare them to the Iraqi Republican Guard in 1991 and assume they will fold in days. This is a dangerous error. The KPA is not built to win a duel of technology. It is built to win a war of exhaustion. The KPA doctrine is based on the Blitz. They know they cannot win a long war. Their goal is to smash through the DMZ defenses, reach Seoul, which is only 30 miles from the border, and hold the city hostage before the United States can reinforce the peninsula. To do this, they will use mass. The KPA has an estimated 4,300 tanks. Even if 50% of them break down before they start their engines, that is still 2,000 tanks. They have 2,500 armored personnel carriers. They have 6,000 artillery pieces aimed at the Greater Seoul metropolitan area. The magazine depth problem. Here is the math problem that keeps US generals awake at night. We run out of missiles before they run out of tanks.
Let's look at the F-35A. It is a miracle of engineering. It is invisible to radar. It sees everything. But in a stealth configuration, it carries 4 air-to-ground weapons internally, usually 2 GBU-31 JDAMs, 2,000-pound bombs, and 2 air-to-air missiles. So a flight of 4 F-35s arrives over the Chorwan Valley. They drop 8 bombs, they kill 8 tanks. Then they have to fly back to base, rearm, and fly back. That is a turnaround time of maybe 2 hours. In those 2 hours, the KPA has pushed another battalion of 40 tanks through the gap. The A-10 as a hauler. The A-10 is a dump truck. It has 11 hardpoints. In a standard Korea loadout, an A-10 isn't just carrying the gun. It is carrying 4 AGM-65 Maverick missiles, 2 GBU-12 paveway laser-guided bombs, 2 CBU-105 sensor-fused weapons, we will get to these later, they are the key, 2 AIM-9 sidewinders for self-defense, and 1,150 rounds of 30mm ammunition. A single flight of 4 A-10s can arrive over the valley and stay there. They don't just drop one bomb and leave. They orbit, they loiter, they pick apart the column vehicle by vehicle. They have the magazine depth to chew through a mechanized division. The F-35 is a sniper rifle, the A-10 is a belt-fed machine gun. When the zombie horde is running at you, you don't want the sniper rifle. If there is one reason to keep the A-10 in Korea, it is not the gun. It is the CBU-105. This is, without hyperbole, the most effective tank-killing weapon ever invented, and almost nobody talks about it. The CBU-105 looks like a standard bomb, but when the A-10 drops it over a column of North Korean armor, it doesn't just explode. 1. The canister opens at altitude. 2. It releases 10 submunitions, BLU-108s. 3. Each submunition has a parachute. It drifts down, spinning. 4. As it spins, it uses a laser and infrared sensor to scan the ground below. It is looking for the heat signature of a tank engine. When it finds a tank, it fires a skeet, a copper slug formed by an explosion, straight down through the thin top armor of the turret. Each CBU-105 carries 40 skeets. A single A-10 can carry roughly 4 to 6 of these units without breaking a sweat. Do the math. A flight of 4 A-10s, each carrying 4 CBU-105s. That is 16 bombs. That is 640 independent tank-killing warheads released in a single pass. Even with a 50% failure rate, which is pessimistic, that is 300 dead tanks in 10 seconds. The F-16 can carry the CBU-105, but usually only 2 of them effectively due to drag and range concerns. The A-10 is the only platform that can carry them in volume and loiter long enough to wait for the perfect moment when the enemy column bunches up at a bridge or a choke point. In the narrow bowling alleys north of Seoul, the CBU-105 is a delete button, and the A-10 is the finger pressing it. The counter-argument is always the same. The A-10 will get shot down. Critics point to the North Korean air defense network, and on paper it looks dense. The KPA possesses thousands of manpads, like the HT-16PGJ, and mobile SAM systems like the KN-06, a clone of the Russian S-300. In Ukraine, this density made the A-10 concept impossible. But again, look at the details. The tech gap. The Russian air defense in Ukraine is state-of-the-art. The S-400 is a digital, networked system that can track stealth aircraft. The North Korean air defense is largely analog. Much of the KPA's radar network is based on 1970s Soviet technology. It relies on ground controllers shouting into radios. It is susceptible to jamming. In a conflict, the U.S. Air Force would unleash the EA-18G Growlers and the F-35s first. Their job is SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. They would blind the big radars, the KN-06s and the S-200s.
That leaves the A-10 to deal with the short-range threats, the AA guns and the manpads. The survivability onion. The A-10 survives in this environment not by being invisible, but by being tough and smart. The MAWS, Missile Approach Warning System. Every modern A-10C has sensors that detect the UV flash of a missile launch. It automatically dispenses flares. The redundancy. An A-10 can lose an engine, half a tail, and all its hydraulics and still fly. An F-16 cannot. In a high-volume fire environment where there are thousands of bullets in the air, you are going to take hits. The A-10 is built to take hits. But the biggest survival tool is the loiter location. The A-10s wouldn't be flying over Pyongyang, they would be flying over the FEBA, forward edge of the battle area, right along the DMZ. They would be operating under the protective umbrella of friendly artillery and friendly jamming. They don't need to penetrate deep into North Korea. The North Koreans are coming to them. War is human, and the human element of the A-10 cannot be quantified in a spreadsheet. The KPA soldier is a conscript. He is likely underfed, undertrained, and indoctrinated to believe Americans are devils. He is operating equipment that is older than his father. When the invasion starts, his morale is the center of gravity. Imagine that soldier sitting in a T-62 tank stuck in a traffic jam in the Chorwan Valley. The vehicle in front of him just exploded. The vehicle behind him is burning. Then he hears it. The sound of the GA-8 Avenger is primal. It sounds like the sky is tearing open. When an F-35 drops a GBU-39 glide bomb from 30,000 feet, it is a silent, clinical death. The tank just disappears. When an A-10 does a gun run, it is a visceral event. The psychological impact of the A-10 on a conscript army is devastating. It creates panic. Crews abandon their vehicles. Columns stall not because they are destroyed, but because the drivers are too terrified to move. In the Korean theater, stopping the momentum of the assault is everything. If you can make the KPA pause for 2 hours, you win. The A-10 is a machine designed to induce terror.
The Air Force says the F-35 is the replacement. They call it the multi-role solution. But multi-role often means master of none. The sortie rate problem. The F-35 is a delicate flower. It requires pristine runways. It requires specialized maintenance hangars with climate control to protect its stealth coating. It has a complex logistical tail. In a high-intensity war, F-35 sortie rates, how many times a day it can fly, are projected to be low. The A-10 is a tractor. It can operate from austere fields. If Osan Air Base gets hit by North Korean ballistic missiles, which is 100% guaranteed in the opening hour of the war, the runways will be cratered. The F-16s and F-35s might be grounded until the runway repair teams fix the concrete. The A-10 has low-pressure tires and a rugged landing gear. It can take off from a taxiway. It can take off from a damaged runway. It can operate from a highway strip. The time on station gap. We mentioned this earlier, but it bears repeating. An F-16 burning afterburner to get to the fight has about 15 to 30 minutes of playtime before it hits bingo fuel and has to go home. An A-10 can loiter for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Why does this matter? Because close air support is rarely show up and bomb. It is show up, talk to the Joint Terminal Attack Controller, JTAC, on the ground, figure out where the friendlies are, wait for the enemy to break cover, wait for the smoke to clear, verify the target, then bomb. That process takes time. The F-16 pilot is constantly checking his fuel gauge. The A-10 pilot has time to get it right. In the confused chaos of the DMZ, where South Korean and North Korean units will be intermingled within hours, that extra time prevents friendly fire. It saves lives.
The motto of U.S. Forces Korea is "Fight Tonight." This isn't just a slogan. It means that the war will not have a 6-month buildup like Desert Storm. It will happen instantly. Strategic airlift, bringing in reinforcements from the U.S. mainland, takes weeks. Carrier strike groups take days to steam from Japan or Pearl Harbor. For the first 72 hours of the Second Korean War, the only thing standing between Seoul and the KPA is what is already on the peninsula. Currently, the 25th Fighter Squadron at Osan represents a significant chunk of that firepower. If you retire them, you are removing 24 aircraft that are perfectly optimized for this specific fight and replacing them with promises. The Air Force promises that B-1 Lancers will fly from Guam. They promise that F-35s will fly from Japan. But those assets have long transit times. They require aerial refueling tankers. And guess what the North Koreans will target first? The tankers. The A-10 is there. It is forward deployed. It generates firepower now, not 4 hours from now. Eventually, yes, the A-10 will be obsolete. Eventually, autonomous drones, systems like the Anduril Fury or the Air Force's CCA, Collaborative Combat Aircraft, will take over the CAS mission. They will be cheap, numerous, and expendable. But in 2026, those drones are not ready. They are not produced in scale. They are not deployed at Osan. Retiring the A-10 now creates a capability valley, a period of 5 to 10 years where we have lost the old capability but haven't gained the new one. And Murphy's Law of Combat says that is exactly when the war will start. The debate over the A-10 is often emotional. People love it or they hate it. But military strategy should not be emotional. It should be pragmatic. The A-10 is a tool. You don't use a sledgehammer to fix a watch. That is why the A-10 is wrong for Ukraine. But you also don't use a jeweler's screwdriver to break down a concrete wall. That is why the F-35 is wrong for stopping a North Korean tank rush. The Korean Peninsula presents a unique set of variables. 1. Constrained geography that favors low-speed maneuverability. 2. Massed enemy armor that requires deep magazines and area effect weapons, CBU-105. 3. Short warning time that demands high readiness and loiter capability. For this specific theater, the A-10 remains the undisputed champion. It is the plug in the dam. Keeping the 25th Fighter Squadron at Osan isn't about nostalgia. It is about insurance. It is a recognition that until we have a swarm of 500 cheap drones ready to unleash hell in the Chorwan Valley, we need the Warthog to hold the line. My name is James. This has been The Hidden Muster. I want to leave you with this question. If we retire the A-10 because it cannot survive a high-tech war against China, are we inadvertently inviting a low-tech war with North Korea by removing the one weapon system they truly fear? I'll see you in the comments.